Hello out there, everybody. Manny here at Area 503. And I hope you all have been well since our last video. Today I just want to talk to you all about cattle mutilations.
Hey, my cattle!
Your cattle?
Yes, my cattle.
Cattle mutilations are up.
I'll stand here and watch my cattle get mutilated one by one.
Yes, that's right, cattle mutilations. Recently in the Northwest, some livestock have turned up dead and mutilated. This is such a bizarre occurrence that I just had to dig into it a little bit. And I found some really extraordinary information about this subject. But let's start at the beginning. On October 2nd, 2019, the Associated Press ran an article about recent cow mutilations outside of Burns, Oregon. Listen to this story, then we're going to come back and talk about it.
In remote eastern Oregon, a serial crime is unfolding. Someone is killing purebred bulls. The warning to listeners, this story includes descriptions of cattle mutilation.
North of Burns, Oregon, dust from hooves creates a fog in the early light. A cowboy calls his cattle dogs as they flank the herd. This summer, 5 young bulls were killed in remote areas here. It's an eerie scene. The dead bull looks like a giant deflated plush toy. It smells. Scavengers haven't touched it. The bull's red coat is as shiny as if you were going to the county fair, but he's missing his tongue, genitals, and all his blood. Now, staff are required to ride in pairs and encouraged to carry arms.
If some person or persons has the ability to take down a 2,000-pound range bull, it's not inconceivable that they wouldn't have a lot of problems dealing with a 180-pound cowboy.
Deputy Dan Jenkins has been working the case.
Everybody's got stories, but so far there's very little evidence.
Jenkins says it's clear the bulls weren't shot. He's also ruled out bears, wolves, cougars, and poisonous plants. Other theories are even stranger.
There has been things where people have said they found satanic altars, or what they believed were satanic or occult type altars, stone altars with pentagrams and different geometric symbols, candles. But it's definitely very frustrating, and it's been going on basically since the 70s.
Since then, there have been reports like this from all over the country, as far away as Kansas and Texas. But these in Oregon are new. 3 hours north of Sylvie's, outside of Pendleton, Oregon, Terry Anderson has just fixed his irrigation system.
Cows just rub on stuff for the heck of it. They love to scratch.
Back in the 1980s, one of this rancher's cows was mysteriously killed overnight. Anderson found her dead, her udder removed with something razor sharp.
And not one drop of blood anywhere.
When Anderson heard of these fresh cases, he called down to Sylvie's to let them know they weren't the only ones. Anderson says the killing is so weird and disturbing, he's never gotten over it, even after all these years.
It's just left a really strange feeling with me since that day. You can't explain it, and no one else has been able to explain it.
The sheriff continues to investigate the killings, and Sylvie's Ranch has put up a $25,000 reward for information that could solve the case.
Wow, I'm truly amazed. This is not just a one-off incident. There were 5 bulls killed and mutilated, and the manner in which they were mutilated is so strange. The cows' tongues and genitalia were removed without leaving any trace of blood, and with surgical precision, the wounds having been cauterized looking like they were burned with a laser. Why won't the scavengers come and dismember and consume the body? To me, that's a pretty big indicator that something's amiss here, because even the scavengers won't touch the carcass. Now, we can rule out natural predators as a cause for these mutilations because of the precision of the wounds and the fact that they seem to have been cauterized by some kind of heat or laser. And while we cannot rule out that this might be human activity, we can state that it's highly unlikely because of the sheer amount of effort involved in draining a bull of all of its blood on location and not spilling a single drop. And of course, we can't rule out that this could be alien activity. And it turns out that these cattle mutilations are a lot more common than you might think, and they date back to the 1960s all over the United States and Canada. I found an article detailing a mutilation back in 1990 that occurred in Vancouver, Washington, just north of Portland. In that mutilation, the wounds were consistent with electrosurgical excision and heat-induced injury, possibly from a laser. Those two traits seem to be common in a lot of these mutilations. You have wounds that were inflicted with surgical precision and seem to be caused by a laser. And then, about a year earlier in 1989, cattle mutilations were documented in multiple areas of Oregon and were investigated by authorities. However, those cases would never be solved. I found another similar case that occurred in Kansas back in 2016, where another series of mutilations occurred. In one of those mutilations, a pregnant cow had one of her eyes harvested. A veterinarian who investigated the case determined that the wound had been caused by a high-powered laser. There have been hundreds of cattle mutilations reported in the United States in the last 60 years. And this really makes me wonder if this is an isolated phenomenon or if it's a global phenomenon. After a little research, I found this report in 2018 about a farmer in the United Kingdom who had cows mutilated with their udders, ears, and tongues missing. They were also completely devoid of blood. These mutilations were done with surgical precision. So here we have a case almost identical to the recent one in Oregon, but it occurred in the UK. And with a little more digging, I discovered that cattle mutilations have been a problem in the UK for quite some time as well. Well, I guess that answers the question of whether this is a global phenomenon or not. It seems this stuff is definitely happening all over the world. And just to make that point, let's talk about one last case that I discovered that happened back in 2018 in the northeast region of Argentina. Check out this report. Aliens blamed for mutilating cows. Aliens are being blamed for a spat of cow mutilations in Argentina after strange lights are spotted in the sky in the build-up to the massacre. Now, this case is unique because finally we have some witnesses who saw strange lights in the sky before the incident occurred. The witnesses reported that 7 cows were mutilated and that it appeared as if they were attacked by lasers, and that strange markings were found on the animals' tongues and genitalia. The witnesses also reported a lack of blood and that the animals had no flesh around the jaw, but that no bones were missing. Samples from the carcasses were sent to a lab which determined that the cattle had not been shot or poisoned. Now, I find this case to be extremely intriguing because we actually have witnesses who saw strange lights in the sky prior to the attack. And presumably we can rule out human activity here, or they would have seen it. That leaves us the question of what type of object or creature would appear as bright lights in the sky and then attack 7 cows with weapons that appear to be lasers. What do you guys think is going on out there? Do you think aliens are experimenting on livestock? Or do you think it's human beings testing top secret weapons? Or is it some kind of global conspiracy to perpetrate a hoax on us? Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. As always, links to our source material can be found in the video description. Use those links to go out and read the information for yourself, then make up your own mind. I personally feel that alien life forms have been here for a very, very long time. It makes sense that they would experiment on our livestock. They are mammals, by the way, and they could tell them a lot about how life has developed here on Earth. And, obviously, people don't mind much if you find cows drained of blood and missing body parts. But I like to think if you found a few human corpses in the same condition, people would demand answers. So I guess it makes sense for them to perform experiments and get samples from our livestock rather than from human beings. And I, for one, am glad that's the case. Well, guys, for now, that's all I have on cattle mutilations. I'll be watching these cases, and if any new information arises, I'll be sure to get it out to you guys, so stay tuned. As always, this has been Manny at Area 503, and I wish you all the best until we meet again. And I am out of here to continue my search for universal truth.